Hello there, my name is Kuma, and today we are taking a close look at PHONOR.
我が忍耐を試すような真似をするでない。なんとも得難きものよ。花や塗装を仕上げたばかりというに。
PHONOR is a 1-star ritualist, the supporter class made for inflicting elemental damage. Being a 1-star, PHONOR has a limited kit. She still has access to the class's trait, her talent, and her basic attacks, but she has no skills and cannot be promoted. Also, all 1-stars have a special effect added to their trait, making them not use deployment limit, so you can deploy them even when you have 0 left. But as compensation, 1-stars have a massive redeploy time of 200 seconds. The nice thing about 1-stars is that they all have a utility effect on their talent that increases in effectiveness with their potentials. And since they don't use deployment limit, you have some interesting support tools that you can use as long as you're willing to bring them with you. We'll explore PHONOR's support role as we move through this video. PHONOR's talent allows her to inflict necrosis on enemies, an elemental damage that debuffs the attack of enemies inflicted by it, and deals 800 elemental damage per second for 15 seconds. There is a little bit more to this talent, but we'll talk about it in parts. After all, this is basically her entire kit. Specifically, PHONOR inflicts 45 necrosis damage per hit to the enemy she is attacking, and her talent lasts for 40 seconds after being deployed. This means she will proc necrosis on one target in 23 hits, and she has a total of 25 hits she can deal in these 40 seconds with her base attack interval of 1.6 seconds. This number of hits necessary for a necrosis proc will be lowered with more potentials, maxing out at 17 hits at potential 5. This makes PHONOR into one of the strongest 1-stars when you look at her alone, and ignore all her support capabilities, because once PHONOR triggers necrosis, the effect deals 12,000 damage. This isn't all that much in the grand scheme of things, but this lets PHONOR kill some enemies that you might not expect, like the special defenders from chapter 14, who have absurd defensive stats but have only 4000 HP. Of course, if you want to play with PHONOR in this way, picking off specific enemies, you might want some help, because no one deserves having to wait 200 seconds for each elite enemy kill. And this is where we can all remember that Chiave has a special talent that lowers the redeploy time of robots by 80% at module level 3 or 75% without module. If you have Chiave deployed when PHONOR retreats, her redeploy time will be only 40 seconds, or 50 if you don't have his module. Much better, right? Of course, situations where one application of necrosis is all you need exist outside the simple scope of directly dealing damage with her, and you might find this even more useful than simply taking the 12k damage PHONOR can deal by herself. If you instead utilize PHONOR's necrosis as a setup for a primal caster, you can get some of that juicy extra elemental damage that they can't access on their last skills without outside help. And sometimes, one proc of necrosis is all you need. But this situation still might not show up very often, and this is because PHONOR is stuck at proccing necrosis on small enemies or elites. Bosses have double the normal size on their elemental bars, meaning even at max potential, PHONOR cannot apply necrosis in one deployment by herself, at least without the ASPD buffs. Since PHONOR inflicts a flat amount of necrosis per hit, she could get to the 2000 elemental damage a boss needs if you give her 36 ASPD at max spot or 80 ASPD at base. But since we are talking about primal casters, we should bring the second part of PHONOR's talent into this discussion. During the 40 seconds of her talent, PHONOR also inflicts Arts Fragility and Elemental Fragility on all enemies inside her range, increasing multiplicatively the damage received by the enemy. And it's important to note, fragility effects work after accounting for the enemy's defenses and res. Both of these effects go from 3% to 10%, depending on the potential she has. Taking this into consideration, if instead of utilizing PHONOR to proc necrosis, you deploy her after the effect activates on enemies, you can increase the damage your primal caster can deal. And yes, 10% is not much. but this can stack with other effects, even with fragility itself. Let me explain. Fragility is an effect that doesn't stack with itself, so you can't get the same buff from Thermiex and Ela, for example. They will not stack with each other. Only the stronger effect will apply. But fragility and arts fragility are considered two separate effects. They can stack, as you can see here. So you can use PHONOR to help with some buff strategies, amplifying arts damage and elemental damage. Especially if you get your hands on Nymphon's releases, you can see numbers go wildly high with the right setup. Of course, there are still a couple other things to consider about PHONOR. She is useful in SSS, as are all supporters in the game. Getting more points for more drawing is always nice, and she can do that just as well as anyone else, while costing 3 DP to deploy. And she might be a genuine choice for you integrated strategies, especially if you find yourself trying to climb the difficulty. Anyone normal, meaning those who don't play with 4 stars only like me, will appreciate having a throwaway choice in supporter vouchers to save some hope. Even better if they might deal 12,000 damage just from existing. Just like you official is an appreciated choice from the supporter voucher for having a sizable stun duration. If you want to find more PHONOR potentials, she was added to the recruitment. You can get her from the rare robot tag, from supporter tags if you roll for 3 hours and 50 minutes or less, of course not guaranteed, most of the time you will only find Orchids, or from the newly added elemental tag, which has only PHONOR for now. But you will still have to roll for 3 hours and 50 and hope the tags for robot or elemental don't drop. It's also possible to roll low times with no tags and get PHONOR, just like all the other robots. But you will be sacrificing a lot of green certs if you decided to do it this way. And that was PHONOR. Like the video and tell me what do you think about our beautiful Banshee robot. I hope everyone has a very nice day. Peace out!